This video is only part of an unpaid, unbiased, in-depth review from an average rider's perspective, so check out the rest in the link below at thegoodride.com. If this video helps, please consider subscribing and buying through our links, or even better, become a member on YouTube or Patreon. You'll get exclusive access to video review shorts as we test gear, along with a lot of other perks. So thanks for watching, and I hope this review helps. Welcome to The Good Ride. I'm James Beastie, and this is the Burton Cartel X EST. You can see the channel system there. And I compared this against the Genesis Reflex, the Genesis Step-On, the regular Step-On. I rode it with the Burton Kendos, and I compared the Kendo Genesis Cartel X setup to the Photon Genesis Step-On setup, just to get an idea of how these all sit on the Burton riding spectrum. But then on top of that, compared these against other regular bindings in same-day samplers, which are just so huge for figuring out how this binding truly compares to other bindings. To give you a short summary, the Burton Cartel X is definitely a little bit of a step up from the Cartel. The EST sucks when it comes to compatibility. You're limiting yourself to about 3 brands, maybe a few more these days. But overall, you're just about 95% of the rest of the industry works with different bindings. So 10 times out of 10, I'll tell you, just get good old Reflex or Reflex Step-On. That's a much better solution if you planned, maybe not even now, but maybe down the line, to try something else. I can't tell you how many people I've emailed with who are stuck with EST, want a different board from a different brand that does something different than the Burton brand and the others that do channel can't offer, and now they have to buy a new pair of bindings. So get Reflex, but if you're committed to Burton only or channel system boards only, this does have some cool advantages. Not for setting back on board because it's wider than where you match up there, but it has a little extra ollie power with the hinge tech. It has a little bit more of a smooth feel underfoot, and it has better overall adjustability in comparison to Reflex on Burton boards, and in comparison to Reflex on other boards, massively better. If you want a smooth, medium response binding, this Cartel X could definitely work for you, but I'd still say get the Reflex version. Now, when it comes to weight, these are 2 pounds compared to both the Genesis Step-On and the regular Genesis Reflex. They're 1.8 pounds, so a little lighter, but not too much. I wish I had the regular Cartel X Reflex, but in this day and age with limited supply issues, I was stoked to just get these and do an extensive test. I wonder if they're a little lighter or they're the same, but I would imagine they're probably pretty close too. And when it comes to Highback Flex, it's moderately stiff when it comes to twist, and not much give. It's a little stiffer than the Cartel and a lot stiffer than the new Genesis Reflex and EST Highback. That's softer than past models. Before it was more close and you just had this hammock strap. In comparison to the Genesis Step-On Reflex, yeah, same kind of thing. Very similar twist and give. So what I like about the Cartel X is they do have a nice pad here, so it doesn't bite into the calf as much. But on top of that, it's very flat up top, so there's minimal calf bite even with stiffer Burton bindings. And then you have just the best high back rotation in the industry. So if you have even featured calves like myself or even bigger calves, then you can rotate the high back so this isn't, one side isn't pointing in to your calf. And one thing that's kind of interesting, This is a left binding and this is a left binding, but if you look at Union Atlas, the asymmetry of the Highback goes this way. If you look at Burton, it goes this way. And those are just preferences with different brands, and a lot of them are like that. Some go that way, some go that way. With Union, it helps when you're leaning out, and with Burton, it helps when you're leaning in. It gives you a little more support there. I found that on snow, it's not that noticeable. It's more of something that messes with your head when you first get one or the other binding after you've been riding one or the other for a long period of time. But when you get on snow, you forget about it. You don't really feel it. Now, when it comes to flex underfoot and butterability, EST is the best in the industry in terms of flex underfoot by just a little bit. It's just a little bit better than Reflex and just a little bit better than some mini disc bindings from other brands that have minimal contact with the board outside of that mini disc. They each feel a little different, but they all accomplish the same thing. They just give the board an easier twist. The mini discs actually do that a little better when it comes to the twist torsionally, but EST and Reflex is better tip to tail. And one thing to mention too is with EST, you have a lot of plastic contact on either side, and sometimes that can damage the board over time. With Reflex, it's a little less, but it's still there. Same with step-on Reflex. I just love how these butter with Burton boards. They have this hinge tech here that allows you just a little more flex either way, but really gives you this snap, when you're weighting up a board on an ollie. And it does increase the ollie power a little bit versus regular old Reflex and Reflex step-on. But I will say though, it's still not worth it to me to have this little bit of extra snap when it comes to compatibility. There's one thing though with Reflex and EST in comparison to some other brands out there. For some reason, the way there's just such minimal contact base plate wise, it can change the response depending on the flex of your board. So if you have a medium to soft flexing board and you put Reflex or EST bindings on them, it helps the board flex more naturally underfoot and therefore makes it more responsive, makes it twist a little easier. But when you're on a stiffer board, this doesn't work as well and they're not as responsive. So let's say if you're on the first cut, which is a massively stiff board, I felt a little lacking with EST and Reflex versus step-on or other bindings out there, like when I put on my Atlas or when I was testing the Atlas Pro. That just has more turning power with stiffer boards. These don't as much, but when I got these on the Territory Manager or other Burton boards that have more of a medium flexing kind of thing going for it, these just did a great job. Very nice, very smooth, responsive bindings. Very middle ground, and I like that. Now, when it comes to shock absorption and dampness, you have a thinner pad here, but overall, the shock absorption, I feel, especially on same-day tests with the same board, is very similar. I think Burton does an amazing job at shock absorption for landing flat, because that happens whether we want to or not. And I think that does great. But when it comes to dampness, absorbing chunder and making a board feel more damp at high speeds, they allow the board to flex too naturally underfoot to make it more damp. And they also don't have any like dampening rubber like you'll see on some Union bindings, or like you'll see on some Jones bindings that not only have those rubber super damp stoppers, but nice shock absorbent foam like Burton, and many other companies out there that do more in terms of dampening. But they're great with shock absorption, so it really comes down to personal preference. And with Jones, you don't have a cover over the sway bar right here, So sometimes you can get arch pressure if you have a softer soled boot. Now, when it comes to ankle support, I still love traditional ankle straps on Reflex and EST much better than I do step-on, because they have more support than the Photon with the ankle strap and the Ion with the ankle strap. And that's one of the reasons why I don't have a Kendo step-on to really make the testing equal, because the Kendo just doesn't have that ankle strap there, and I really missed that when I was trying the Burton Ruler step-on. I just felt it fold in the front, and I didn't like that feeling. With an ankle strap there, you get much more support in uneven terrain. So I still love these Burton ankle straps. And then on top of that, they're just the best in the business. I like the Genesis ankle strap and the Malavita ankle strap just a touch better, but this is so close in terms of design and construction that it's almost a non-issue. You just go with the binding that appeals to you more. The toe straps I think are good, but man, Flux has just probably the best toe strap in the industry. Solomon has an amazing toe strap. Union has an amazing toe strap. So do so many other brands out there like Nitro. And I think those are all a little better in terms of how we ride in our crew. But these aren't bad at all, and they do have some grip, and I like the new design over the older one. One thing I didn't mention, and I didn't know where to put it, but this can feel like almost like a suction cup sometimes in the Highback. Sometimes I feel like I'm literally like popping out of the binding. It's so stuck, and I lose my balance. But overall, it's kind of nice and keeping your boot locked into the Highback and helping with response. Now, when it comes to the ratchets, I love this just regular old ratchet. It's not as smooth as the double take ratchet that's got teeth on both sides. That's just a little smoother on and off, a little faster, but still it's just so close it's hard to really say. If you want fast on and off, go step on. That's just exponentially faster. But they do a good job. The only thing I don't like is with all Burton bindings is I love to crank down my toe because there's no contact with my feet whatsoever. It just goes all around my Burton Kendos. And I love to crank that down and really lock that into the heel cup, get my boot into the Highback as much as possible. And then with the ankle strap, it's super supportive, and I hate doing this. I hate when people do this. They crank super hard around their ankle strap because they're damaging the top of their foot and their ankle. It's just over time, you're going to cause damage that might be irreversible. So I just go one or two past contact to where it's snug and it feels good. And I crank down here where there's no pressure points and no contact with my feet. I love that. With Burton, you can't really do this. It has like a cranker blocker. It's very much like a limiter in a car that won't allow you to get to max speeds for safety reasons. And so I like this and don't like this. I think overall it's fine. And I didn't really feel much of a difference when I was riding and I didn't have my toe all the way cranked down, and then I switched out to a binding that could. So I think in general I like that because too many people are hurting their feet. Now, when it comes to adjustability, these are excellent. They have the best high back rotation in the business, toolless straps, nice easy forward lean adjuster. You just twist this up or back, and you can dial out your boot to fit inside this binding really well because this has an adjustable gas pedal, just like Reflex, but then you can use this for stance angle, stance width, and you can slide it toe to heel to center this perfectly on the board. In comparison to Reflex, you only have 2 positions instead of infinite positions when sliding toe to heel. So I like this better for Burton bindings. And then you have literally, it's beyond excellent. It's perfect stance width adjustability because you're on that channel system, so it's infinite. So really good in dialing out your boot to the binding and therefore centering it on board and getting your perfect stance width, as long as you have a channel system board. So in conclusion, I think that this Cartel X is great for Burton boards and channel system boards, but 10 times out of 10, I'll still recommend the Cartel Reflex or the Genesis Reflex or the Cartel X Reflex, because that just has more board compatibility. There are so many other amazing options and amazing rides out there. So do yourself a favor, buy Reflex, unless you're full on committed to the Burton system, or you're totally fine with buying another pair of bindings down the line. Giving advice on YouTube is very difficult because I need a lot of info from you to actually help. So if you want real advice, fill out the Me Harmony profile in the link below so I can help you properly.